Have you ever wondered why museum storage rooms burst with 1860s artifacts impossible to replicate even on modern CNC machines? Why historians nervously shuffle their forged chronologies when you ask them to explain the sudden appearance of advanced biomechanical devices in an era when doctors didn't even wash their hands? We've been lied to our entire lives about gradual progress, about the straight line from stone axe to smartphone, but that line is fiction. History isn't linear, it's cyclical, and we live on the ruins of a civilization that surpassed us in everything, including biomechanics. Today, I want you to open your eyes and look at one of the most uncomfortable topics for official science, the topic that makes academics look away and mumble excuses about genius inventors and necessity being the mother of invention. We're talking about the so-called era of prosthetics, which suddenly, as if by a snap of fingers, arrived in the 1860s. Here's what they want you to believe. The American Civil War created unprecedented demand for artificial limbs. Brilliant self-taught inventors rose to the challenge. Progress marched forward. A beautiful story for a patriotic film. Here's the reality that will shatter your comfortable worldview. 1860s, medicine was barbaric beyond comprehension. Surgeons performed amputations in 3 minutes using dirty saws. No anesthesia, no antibiotics, no understanding of infection. Survival rate 10%. 9 out of 10 men died screaming on blood-soaked tables while doctors moved from patient to patient without washing their hands. Yet these same barbaric butchers supposedly produced articulated finger joints with independent movement, hydraulic pressure systems for natural gait simulation, polycentric knee modules that change their rotation center based on angle, cable-driven mechanisms requiring watchmaker precision, lightweight alloy construction that doesn't corrode after 150 years. Do you see the problem? You cannot build a Mercedes when the wheel hasn't been invented yet. You cannot create precision biomechanics with a file and a hammer in a barn workshop. You cannot machine components requiring tolerances of hundredths of a millimeter when your best lathe can barely maintain accuracy within a full millimeter. This is like finding a microchip in ancient Rome and claiming the local blacksmith forged it. Where are the factories that produced these marvels? Where are the training schools that taught the engineering? Where are the supply chains that delivered rare materials? Where are the testing facilities? Where are the failed prototypes? They don't exist. Look at those sepia photographs. Bearded men in crude workshops holding hammers, supposedly assembling devices that require clean rooms and precision equipment. Look into their eyes. Don't you feel it? The uncanny valley effect, those empty, erased gazes that disturb you on a primal level? Something is catastrophically wrong with the story we've been told. The technology didn't evolve, it appeared. Fully formed, as if someone opened a warehouse and started distributing what was already manufactured. And then, just as suddenly, it vanished. By 1900, prosthetics became cruder. World War I veterans received devices more primitive than what Civil War amputees wore 40 years earlier. The quote, too, reversed. How is that possible? It's not, unless we've been lied to about everything. Today, we demolish the comfortable fairy tale. Today, we follow the evidence to its horrifying conclusion. The most interesting part is just beginning. Write in the comments what city you're from, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. The tension is rising. Who's watching us from where? Drop a like and subscribe to the channel. There's more to come. Mark yourselves in the comments. Which country are you from? Hit that like button and subscribe. The plot thickens. Let's check our geography right where you are right now. Smash that thumbs up and subscribe. We're just warming up. Tell us, where are you watching from? Support the video with a like and hit that subscribe button. The climax is near. Share what corner of the world you're in right now. Drop a like and make sure to subscribe. Things are developing rapidly. Write your city in the chat, slam that like and hit subscribe so you don't get lost. All the juiciest stuff is ahead. Let's get acquainted. Who's from where? Hit like and subscribe right now. The intrigue is building. Write where you're watching this episode from and reward us with a like and subscription. Emotions are off the charts. Quickly write what city you're from. Drop a fat like and subscribe to the channel. Today, you learn the truth about the era of prosthetics and what it reveals about who we really are. Let's establish exactly when these miraculous inventions appeared, because the dates alone prove we're being fed a deliberate fabrication. 1863, James Hanger patents his double-articulated leg. This isn't a simple peg leg. This is a sophisticated mechanical joint that changes its rotation center based on the angle of flexion. Do you understand what that requires? Differential equations, kinematic calculations that weren't even formulated until the 20th century. The mathematics to design this joint didn't officially exist when Hanger supposedly invented it in a barn. But wait, it gets worse. The tolerances required for this mechanism to function without grinding itself to pieces? 0.01 millimeters, 1/100th of a millimeter. The best machining tools available in 1863, crude lathes that could barely maintain accuracy within 1.0 millimeters. That's 100 times less precise than required. You cannot file metal by hand to tolerances of 0.01 millimeter. It's physically impossible. Your hand trembles with greater amplitude than that. Even modern machinists with precision equipment struggle to achieve such tolerances consistently. So how did a self-taught farmer accomplish this in a barn workshop with a file and hammer? He didn't. 1846 to 1860. Benjamin Palmer develops the Quote 4, a prosthetic with artificial muscles made from catgut that provide variable resistance mimicking natural muscle behavior. This requires understanding dynamic tension in biological materials. It requires measuring muscle behavior with precision instruments. What instruments existed in 1846 to measure muscle tension dynamics? None. The field of biomechanics wasn't even established. The first serious studies of muscle behavior didn't begin until the 1880s to 1890s. Palmer was supposedly calculating forces he had no way to measure, designing mechanisms to replicate behavior he had no way to study, using materials whose properties he had no way to test. Sure, and I suppose he also invented the electron microscope in his spare time? 1866. The Beaufort arm appears. 5 independently articulated fingers controlled by shoulder movement through a system of pulleys and cables. Each finger has 3 joints. That's 15 points of articulation requiring synchronized movement through mechanical advantage systems. The gear mechanisms inside this device operate at watchmaker precision. But here's the chronological impossibility that should make your blood run cold. Ball bearings weren't mass-produced until the 1890s. The technology to manufacture perfect spheres from hardened steel, grind them to precision, and assemble them into functional bearing systems didn't exist in 1866. Yet, the Beaufort arm contains multiple ball bearing assemblies. Who machined these perfect spheres? On what equipment, in what facility? Where are the manufacturing records? Where are the suppliers? They don't exist. Now consider the flood. Over 150 prosthetic patents filed between 1860 and 1870, just 10 years. Compare that to the entire 18th century, which produced approximately 30 prosthetic innovations total. This isn't gradual evolution. This isn't genius inventors responding to demand. This is a flood of pre-existing knowledge suddenly released into the historical record. Technology doesn't leap forward, it crawls. It requires infrastructure, education, failed experiments, incremental improvements, supply chains, trained craftsmen, testing facilities. None of that existed unless someone simply opened a warehouse and started distributing what was already manufactured, already tested, already perfected by someone who isn't in your history books. Let's do the math, because mathematics is the only language that cannot be corrupted by historians with forged narratives. The production scale impossibility. The American Civil War produced approximately 30,000 amputees requiring prosthetics. Conservative estimate, the real number was likely higher. Each prosthetic device contains an average of 300 precision-machined parts: gears, pins, springs, articulated joints, fasteners, bearing surfaces. Do the calculation. 30,000 amputees times 300 parts equals 9 million precision components. 9 million parts. These were produced in approximately 5 years, 1863 to 1868 peak production period. That's 1,800,000 parts per year. That's 4,932 precision parts per day. That's 205 parts per hour if we assume 24-hour production, which didn't exist. Now factor in reality. No electricity, no assembly lines, no standardized measurements, no interchangeable parts manufacturing. That concept was barely emerging. No rapid communication systems for custom orders, no railways functioning reliably in war-torn regions. Each prosthetic had to be custom-fitted to the individual amputee. That means measurements had to be taken, transmitted, parts fabricated to specification, assembled, shipped, and fitted. Timeline from amputation to fitted prosthetic, documented at 3 to 6 weeks on average, 3 to 6 weeks to measure, communicate specifications across hundreds of miles, fabricate 300 custom parts per device, assemble and deliver. In an era when a letter took 2 weeks to travel from Virginia to Pennsylvania, show me the factories. Show me the workforce of thousands of precision machinists. Show me the supply chain for rare materials. Show me the logistics network. You can't, because they didn't exist. The only logical explanation: warehouses were pre-stocked with prosthetics in various standardized sizes. The amputations were performed to match available prosthetic specifications. The limbs were cut to fit the devices, not the devices built to fit the limbs, as if someone knew in advance exactly how many limbs would be severed and had prepared accordingly. The catgut paradox. Palmer's artificial muscles used catgut, animal intestine processed into cord, organic material. Let's calculate its survival impossibility. Catgut under conditions of use, constant flexion, exposure to sweat, humidity, skin oils, bacteria, degrades rapidly. Modern surgical catgut sutures dissolve completely in 60 to 90 days by design. Historical catgut in museum conditions, dry, climate-controlled, no stress, shows 90% structural degradation within 6 months. Yet museum specimens of Palmer legs retain functional catgut after 150 years. The cords still flex, still provide resistance, still function. Calculate the preservation impossibility. 150 years equals 1,800 months. Expected degradation, 90% loss in 6 months. Observed degradation, less than 10% over 1,800 months. That's 300 times better preservation than any known organic material from that era. Either these specimens contain unknown polymer materials disguised as catgut, or preservation technology exists that makes modern cryogenics look primitive. The fitting impossibility. Modern prosthetic socket fitting requires 3D laser scanning, pressure mapping sensors, computer modeling, thermoplastic molding, multiple adjustment sessions over months. 1860s prosthetic fitting required eyeball measurement, wood and leather, hand tools, yet documented accounts describe amputees walking immediately, returning to farm labor within weeks, dancing at social events within months. This is biologically impossible. The human residual limb requires months to stabilize post-amputation. Swelling fluctuates, bone remodels, tissue redistributes. Modern amputees with advanced prosthetics require 6 to 12 months of adjustment. 1860s amputees with crude materials achieved perfect interface compatibility immediately. Unless the socket wasn't crude, unless the interface technology was far more advanced than the visible exterior suggested, unless someone understood human biomechanics better than we do today. The mathematics screams impossibility. The timeline screams impossibility. The materials scream impossibility, and yet the devices exist. In museums, functional, impossible. Calculate it yourself, the numbers don't lie, historians do. Walk into any major museum with Civil War collections. Look at the prosthetics in storage. Actually examine them. What you'll see will make your skin crawl. The alloy mystery. These devices are 150 years old. They've survived storage in non-climate controlled conditions, humidity fluctuations, temperature extremes, yet the metal components show virtually no corrosion. Compare this to Civil War cannons from the exact same era. Those bronze and iron weapons are heavily corroded. pitted, falling apart. They require constant preservation treatment. Many have degraded beyond recognition. The prosthetics? Pristine. Metallurgical analysis of museum specimens reveals alloy compositions that shouldn't exist. Lightweight metals with corrosion resistance far exceeding anything available in the 1860s. Available metals in 1863. Iron rusts rapidly, steel rusts rapidly, brass corrodes, turns green, copper oxidizes, turns green/black. Stainless steel, invented 1913, 50 years too late. Aluminum alloys, first developed 1906, 43 years too late. Titanium alloys, 1950s, 90 years too late. So what are these artifacts made from? Laboratory analysis shows complex alloy compositions with trace elements that suggest advanced metallurgy. Some specimens contain aluminum components, in an era when aluminum was more expensive than gold and could only be produced in tiny quantities through chemical reduction processes. The Hall-Héroult electrolytic process that made aluminum affordable. Invented 1886, 23 years after these prosthetics were supposedly mass-produced with aluminum parts. Where did they get the aluminum? Who could afford to use the world's most precious metal for prosthetic components? Why does it show no corrosion after 150 years when modern aluminum oxidizes within months? The surgical blueprint conspiracy. Examine Civil War amputation manuals. The diagrams look like engineering specifications, precise angles, standardized bone lengths, specific cut locations marked with mathematical precision. Modern amputation surgery is customized to each patient's anatomy, injury, and future prosthetic needs. Every residual limb is unique. 1860s amputation diagrams show standardization, as if surgeons were preparing attachment surfaces for pre-existing prosthetic connection systems, as if the human body was being modified to fit the machine, not the machine adapted to fit the body. Bone cut at exactly 15 centimeters below knee joint, muscle tissue folded at specific angles, skin flaps measured to precise dimensions. This is reverse engineering. This is quality control for biological units being prepared for mechanical integration. They weren't healing wounded soldiers. They were standardizing the interface. The polymer skin impossibility. Some high-end prosthetics from the 1860s feature artificial skin covering, flexible material with molded details including veins, wrinkles, even fingernails. Official explanation. Painted leather says microscopic analysis tells a different story. The material shows polymer characteristics, complex molecular chains, plasticizers, synthetic compounds, first synthetic polymer, bakelite. Invented 1907, flexible polymer suitable for skin simulation, 1920s to 1930s, modern prosthetic skin materials, 1960s to 1970s. Yet these 1860 specimens display polymer properties under laboratory analysis. The molecular structure doesn't match any natural material. It doesn't match leather, rubber, or any organic compound available in that era. What is this material? Where did it come from? Who synthesized it? The precision instrument problem. The Beaufort arm contains gear assemblies requiring tolerances of 0.02 millimeters. To verify such precision, you need measuring instruments accurate to at least 0.002 millimeters. The micrometer, invented 1867, 1 year after the Beaufort arm was patented. Early micrometers had accuracy of only 0.01 millimeter, still 5 times less precise than needed to verify the gears actually functioned in the device. Precision measuring instruments capable of 0.002 millimeters accuracy. Not available until the 1890s. So how did the manufacturer verify the parts met specifications? How did they know the gears would mesh properly? How did they achieve precision they couldn't measure? They didn't manufacture these parts, they distributed them. Each artifact is a chronological impossibility. 1 might be genius, 2 might be extraordinary luck, 4 is enemy action. This is a pattern. This is evidence of distribution from a hidden stockpile. This is proof that someone already possessed these technologies and decided to release them in the 1860s for purposes we're not being told. Now let's talk about something that will truly disturb you. The prosthetics are impossible, but the people who received them? They're even more impossible. The population explosion that defies biology, official narrative claims. U.S. population exploded during the 1860s to 1880s. Cities filled with millions. Infrastructure projects required massive labor forces, immigration and urbanization, they tell us. Let's examine what was actually happening during this growth period. Civil War casualties, 620,000 to 750,000 dead, mostly males aged 18 to 35. The prime reproductive demographic. Cholera epidemics of the 1860s, millions dead across North America and Europe. Typhus, smallpox, tuberculosis rampant, no vaccines, no antibiotics, no sanitation systems, infant mortality rate approximately 40 to 50%. Nearly half of all children died before age 5. Medical care, bloodletting, mercury poisoning, amputation with dirty saws, survival rate for any serious illness or injury abysmal. Calculate the biological reality. Wars kill reproductive males. Diseases kill children and the elderly. Medical treatment kills patients. Population should decline catastrophically. Instead, census records show cities swelling with millions of adult, work-ready humans appearing seemingly overnight. Where did they come from? The genealogical dead end. Research your own family tree. Go back to the mid-19th century. What do you find? Most family genealogies end abruptly between 1840 to 1870. No records before that, no diaries, no family stories passed down, no memory of grandparents or great-grandparents. Census records from this period show something disturbing. Fully formed adults appearing with no childhood records, no birth certificates, no baptismal records, no school attendance, no family connections to previous generations. They simply appear in the 1860s to 1880s, adults aged 25 to 40 ready to work, ready to populate empty cities, ready to operate machines they supposedly had no training to use. Immigration, the historians mumble. People moved from rural areas to cities. Immigration doesn't create people, it moves them. And moved from where? Rural areas that were equally devastated by war and disease? European countries experiencing identical population catastrophes? The mathematics doesn't work. The biology doesn't work. The logistics don't work. The photographic evidence. Examine photographs from the 1870s to 1890s. Thousands of images of crowds in cities. What strikes you immediately? The uniformity? Thousands of men in identical dark suits, identical hats, identical facial hairstyles, standing in identical poses with identical empty expressions. Their eyes disturb you. You feel it instinctively. The uncanny valley effect. That primal recognition that something appears human but isn't quite right. Compare these photographs to portraits from the 1820s to 1840s. Those earlier images show individuality, character in the faces, life in the eyes, unique clothing, personal expression. The post-1860s photographs show standardization, as if these crowds were produced in batches, as if they were manufactured rather than born. The connection crystallizes. Rapid population appearance plus mass amputations plus instant prosthetic availability equals planned operation. Hypothesis: post-catastrophe controllers needed a labor force. Natural population recovery takes generations. Too slow. Solution: rapid production of biological units. Methods unknown. Incubators, cloning, accelerated growth, genetic engineering. Technologies we're told don't exist. But rapid production means defects, weak skeletal structures, malformed limbs, organ failures, genetic instabilities. The amputations weren't war injuries, they were birth defects. The prosthetics weren't humanitarian medical devices. They were quality control repairs for defective biological units produced too quickly. The wars weren't political conflicts. They were clearing operations, either eliminating those who remembered the previous world or culling defective batches that couldn't be repaired. War provided cover for the largest human modification experiment in history. and we are the descendants of that experiment. The prosthetics didn't appear from nowhere. There were precedents. Artifacts that official history dismisses as curiosities, but which tell a far more disturbing story. The 18th century automata. Between 1770 to 1780, Swiss watchmaker Pierre-Jacques Droz created 3 mechanical dolls that still function today in museums, not simple wind-up toys, sophisticated androids. The writer, programmable mechanical boy that dips quill in ink and writes custom text up to 40 characters. The text can be changed by adjusting cam positions, essentially reprogramming. The musician, female figure that actually plays organ, fingers pressing keys with variable pressure. Her chest rises and falls, simulating breathing. Her eyes follow her hands. The draftsman draws 4 different images with precision, blows on paper to remove pencil dust, tracks progress with eye movement. These aren't toys, these are demonstrations of biomechanical engineering requiring microscopic gear systems, over 6,000 parts in mechanisms smaller than pocket watches, programmable cam systems, mechanical memory storage, precision articulation, finger joints with independent control, pneumatic simulation, artificial breathing mechanisms, sensory feedback systems, eye tracking coordinated with hand movement. Official explanation, quote 11, but examine the precision, the complexity, the miniaturization. These mechanisms require tolerances and materials identical to the 1860s prosthetics. Same unknown alloys, same impossible precision, same biomechanical understanding. What if these weren't toys? What if they were surviving examples of biomechanical bodies from the previous civilization? What if Jacques Droz didn't build them? He restored them, found them in ruins, repaired what he could, added crude clockwork exteriors to disguise their true origin. The cannibalization hypothesis. Look inside museum prosthetics from the 1860s. The internal mechanisms show machining quality far exceeding external components, as if someone took precision mechanisms from elsewhere and wrapped them in crude leather and rivets to disguise their origin. The gears, unknown alloys, microscopic precision, no tool marks. The exterior, rough leather, hand-stitched, obviously 19th century craftsmanship. 2 different technology levels in the same device. Inside, artifacts from an advanced civilization. Outside, camouflage added by local craftsmen who didn't understand what they were working with. What if 1860s prosthetics are cannibalized parts from android graveyards, mechanisms harvested from ruins, repurposed for human bodies, disguised with period-appropriate materials? The architectural evidence? The 1860s population explosion filled cities with massive neoclassical buildings supposedly constructed in the early 19th century. But examine these structures. Precision stonework requiring industrial cutting equipment, massive foundation systems suggesting knowledge of geology and engineering, integrated infrastructure, sewers, water systems, electrical conduits before electricity was invented, impossible construction timelines, cathedrals supposedly built in 5 to 10 years that should require 50 to 100 years. These cities weren't built by the people who inhabited them in the 1860s. The population was filling empty structures, inheriting buildings they didn't construct, operating infrastructure they didn't design. The prosthetics match the architecture. Both display technology levels inconsistent with official chronology. Both suggest inheritance from a previous, more advanced civilization. The technology regression pattern, 1770s to 1780s. Sophisticated automata with thousands of precision parts, 1800s to 1840s. Technology decline, simpler mechanisms, lost knowledge, 1860s to 1870s, sudden, quote, 13 of advanced prosthetics, 1880s to 1890s. Prosthetics become simpler, cruder, 1914 to 1918. WWI prosthetics more primitive than 1860s versions. This isn't progress. This is scavenging from a dwindling stockpile. The advanced mechanisms were finite. As they broke down, they couldn't be repaired. The knowledge to manufacture them was lost. By 1900, the supply was exhausted. The technology didn't evolve and then regress. It was distributed, used up, and withdrawn. Someone opened warehouses in the 1860s, distributed what remained of previous civilization's technology, used it to repair and standardize a rapidly produced population. Then, once the task was complete and supplies exhausted, closed the doors and rewrote history to make it look like primitive humans invented these marvels in barn workshops. The 1860s weren't an era of invention. They were an era of distribution and deception. Now we arrive at the truth that will haunt you for the rest of your life. The real purpose. Revealed, post-catastrophe controllers faced a problem. Massive infrastructure lying in ruins, cities empty, factories silent, mines unworked, railways incomplete. A civilization to restart but no population to do the work. Natural population recovery, too slow. Takes generations, requires stable families, childhood development, education, skill training, decades before a workforce reaches productive age. They needed workers immediately. Millions of them, adult, strong, compliant. Solution: rapid production of biological units through methods we're told don't exist. Accelerated growth. Genetic engineering, mass incubation, technologies that leave no records because we're not supposed to know they were used, but rapid production guarantees defects, skeletal malformations, limb abnormalities, organ weaknesses, neurological instabilities, genetic cascading failures. You cannot mass produce humans without quality control issues. The prosthetics weren't medical humanitarian aid. They were final assembly repairs, the last step in manufacturing defective biological tools that couldn't be discarded but could be completed with mechanical components. Humans weren't being healed. They were being finished on an assembly line. The wars, field testing, and batch culling. Eliminate units with hidden defects, stress test the survivors, standardize the interface between flesh and machine under combat conditions. This is why amputation diagrams look like engineering specifications. This is why prosthetics were available immediately in standardized sizes. This is why the technology appeared fully formed, because it was never invented. It was always part of the production process. The technology withdrawal. By 1900, something changed. The advanced prosthetics vanished from production. WWI veterans received crude wooden legs and hook hands, devices far more primitive than what their grandfathers wore in the 1860s. Why the regression? The stockpile was exhausted. The complex mechanisms broke down. Nobody knew how to repair them because nobody had actually manufactured them. They were distributed from existing supplies, not produced from understanding. Once the task was complete, ruins excavated, cities repopulated, infrastructure restarted, new history written, the controllers withdrew the advanced technology. It was too obvious, too many questions, too much evidence of capabilities that didn't fit the narrative of primitive 19th century civilization gradually progressing. Better to phase it out, replace it with cruder versions, make it look like the advanced prosthetics were just quote 14, that were quote 15 with simpler, more practical designs. Rewrite the story, make the regression look like progress. We are the descendants. Look at your hands, your body, your face in the mirror. You are not descended from the builders of the previous civilization. You are descended from the replacements, the rapidly produced workforce created to inhabit ruins and operate machines they didn't invent. The era of prosthetics was the birth scar of our species. Every third veteran carried amputation scars, not from war injuries, but from manufacturing defects that required mechanical completion. We are a civilization of amputees, not our limbs. Our memory was severed. Our history was amputated. Our true origin was cut away and replaced with comfortable lies about gradual progress and human ingenuity. Phantom limb pain isn't just neurology, it's genetic memory. The ache of what was stolen from us, the sensation of the greatness we once possessed, now missing. We feel the absence of the civilization that was taken. The ongoing control. They still ration technology to us like feed to farm animals, just enough to keep us productive, never enough to understand. We celebrate inventors who merely rediscovered fragments. Edison, Tesla, Ford? Did they invent or did they remember? Did they create or did they access hidden archives and claim credit for distributing what already existed? Every advancement we're allowed comes with conditions, patents, corporations, controlled release, compartmentalized knowledge. Nobody sees the whole picture. The prosthetics of the 1860s were a mistake. Too much, too fast. They had to be withdrawn, and the evidence buried in museum storage where nobody asks uncomfortable questions. The final horror. Look again at those photographs from the 1860s. Those men with brass hands and articulated steel legs standing in empty city streets. They aren't heroes of medical progress. They are the first generation of the new humanity, part flesh, part machine, all property. We are their descendants, and the prosthetics we wear today, the smartphones fused to our hands, the screens replacing our eyes, the algorithms controlling our thoughts aren't just conveniences, they are the chains we've learned to call civilization. The surgery was successful. The patient remembers nothing. And the scars? We've been taught to call them, quote, 17. We are not descendants of greatness. We are replacements. The era of prosthetics wasn't about healing the wounded. It was about assembling the workers. And we've been working ever since, generation after generation, building on ruins we're forbidden to remember, using tools we're not allowed to understand, serving masters we cannot see. Every advancement we celebrate was already invented. Every discovery we make was already known. We are not progressing, we are remembering, and they are terrified